Hi everyone and welcome to the latest instalment of Bernd Sheehan's Tales in Tech series. My name is Beth and I'm a marketing executive here at Bernd Sheehan, as well as our diversity and inclusion champion. For those of you who don't know, we're a specialist technology recruitment agency with offices in both London and Manchester, working with tech-centric and data-driven businesses across software engineering, testing, infrastructure, tech ops, product, data, and senior hires. So today we are joined by Tullio Coppotelli, who is an engineering manager at Rightmove. Tullio is going to be giving us an insight into his life hacks, which he developed during the last lockdown, which really helped him to become more productive, manage both his work and home life more effectively, and ultimately become his best self. So just a quick one, if you have any questions throughout, encourage you to ask them using the Q&A function, which should be at the bottom of your screen. And Tullio will answer those questions at the end of the presentation. So over to you, Tullio.
Thank you very much for the introduction and welcome to everybody. I'm very happy to be here and to talk about a topic that I really care about. And I hope that this presentation will be interesting and useful to you. Has definitely been useful to myself. So it would be a little bit of the story of my journey from the last lockdown to where we are now. But before I start, let me just introduce myself. I know a few of you I actually know, and thank you very much for joining, but most of you probably have no idea who I am. So I'm Tullio Coppotelli. You can reach me on Twitter or in LinkedIn. I have been working at Rightmove for the last 5 years as an engineer manager. This can come as a surprise for many of you because I basically have no accent, but I am Italian. I must admit, I tried to get rid of my accent. It didn't work. So I decided that this is now a feature. So it's easier to stay. These are a few of the topics that I'm interested in. I started my journey in tech as a software developer. I recently started my journey into machine learning. I became an engineer manager. And then I started thinking about different topics, not necessarily related to technology. I think my first public speech was probably about the imposter syndrome. That is something that I find quite interesting. And now I'm here talking about self-improvement. That's another topic that I really care about. But the question is, why am I here talking about self-improvement? So this is a journey that I decided to start at the end of last year when I realized that COVID was actually having a negative impact in my life. And I found myself spending my days doing meaningless activities. And I kind of feel like I was wasting my time, and I wanted and needed to do something better with my time. I wanted to do something more meaningful, basically, but I didn't really know how to do that. So I decided to ask myself, how could I improve and what could I do to have a better use of my time? Now, this presentation is going to be full of techniques that I've learned. But this is still my personal journey. So these are things that work for myself, but they may not work for you. What I would suggest is to try a few things and then see what works for you. And hopefully there will be something for everyone. So we are going to start this journey by asking ourselves a simple question: how are we? And then we are going to look at answering a few other questions like, should you change? What does it mean to change? what do you do if you want to change? And then we look into my story, the impact that changing had on myself, and what is next. So take a few seconds and ask yourself this question: how are you? I know I can't see your face, but if you're anything like me, and if you had a day like my day so far, the answer will be that you are busy. We have been incredibly busy in the last year. And if you don't believe me, or if you think you have not been busy, why don't you open Outlook or just have a look at your calendar and let me know if your calendar looks anything like this. This is not my calendar, but this is an example of a calendar where someone had to book their own lunch. So this is where we are now. We have to book time in our calendar for lunch. Otherwise, we are going to be too busy to eat. That's something incredible. So we are busy, and we feel like we have not been very productive, and there are things that we want to do. So what we do, like everyone, we make a plan, and most of our plans look like this. We want to do everything, but before we look into how we could change our plan to be something more achievable than just do everything, we should probably ask ourselves the question whether or not we should change. Because the reality is that this has been a crazy busy year. Has been a year where COVID had an impact in everyone's life. We have been experimenting with new responsibilities, like we ended up teaching our own children. And if you look homeschooling up on the internet, you will see like these amazing images of children happy and smiling. But we all know that this is the reality that we have to deal with for the one of us that had children. We also have people we care about, and we were worried about them, and we have been worried about our own job. Plus, living in England, we have the extra fun of having had a terrible weather in the last year. So why do we need to change? Can't we just chill, and wait for next year, or for COVID to disappear? Well, we could, but the reality is that the job market is crazy. Jobs, new jobs are appearing. Jobs that we felt were secure are disappearing. And you may be thinking like, yeah, that's fine, but I work in IT. I mean, this is definitely not going to affect me. Well, you may double think about that, because if you think, for example, of the React or the JavaScript environment, what is true this year may not be true next year. Things change so quickly that they have to come up with the term JavaScript fatigue to basically explain the challenge of having to deal with the constant change in the working environment. And if this is not enough, you always have the challenge of the AI and what disruption will come next. We really don't know. If you want to have a better idea of what the future has, what surprises are there for us, I would suggest you to read this book. I'm not going to talk about it, but I found it very interesting because it will explain some of the challenges around AI and some of the challenges that we will face as human beings in the future. So here I am. I think like I want to change, but I don't know what to do. So as the nerd that I am, I decided that the only possible way to find an answer was to look into books. And what I did, I read these two books that helped me in my journey. The first book, Make Time, is a collection of tricks and techniques that you can use to better organize your day. While the second book, The 5 a.m. Club, is a fictional story of two people that are trying to do a journey that is very similar to mine. And they are basically trying to become a better version of themselves. For different reasons, I find both of these books very useful. And I'm going to share with you some of the things that these books talk about. So first of all, you need to ask yourself the question whether or not you could change, because it can be that you think that change, I mean, you want to change, but it may be that you think change is not something that works for you. Well, changing is difficult, but what you should be aiming to do is to do incremental changes. Have a small change, become every day, become a better version of yourself. But unfortunately, you also have to put the effort. There is no line around that. Change is difficult. So we want to start changing, and I suggest you take incremental steps to improve yourself every day. This is something that I found quite interesting as a way to explain why it is important to improve every day. So think about the scenario where every single day you just do 1% more of what you were doing the day before, and you do that for a year. So 365 days later, you will have achieved a result that is 37 times greater than when you started the year before. I think that is quite impressive. At the same time, if you do the other way around, and every day you do 1% less, you will find out that your results will be 1,500 times less than when you started. So that is why it is important to do incremental changes and to improve yourself. Many of you may be familiar, for example, with the 10,000 hours rule. And this is literally the idea that in order to become an expert on a topic, you need to work on that particular subject for 10,000 hours. So that's how long it takes to become an expert. And there is some very good example of people that achieve this level of expertise. Some examples are more strange than others. So, for example, if you think about the Beatles, what people don't know is that between the 1960 and 1964, what they did, they went to Germany and they were doing gigs almost for free. So every night they would be in Hanover, they would be playing in front of very few people for very little money. But what this allowed them to do is to get the confidence of playing in front of an audience, and they started learning what works and what doesn't work when they play in front of people. And when the opportunity arose in 1964, they managed to play a staggering 1,200 times live in front of a public. And this is a number that many bands nowadays don't do even at the end of their career. So what means is that by practicing, they were ready to catch the opportunity to become famous and successful. Another example of this is Bill Gates. I know this may be a little bit more controversial as a subject. Not everyone likes him, but he did put the effort to get where he wanted to be. More examples are available in this book, Outliers, and I would definitely suggest you to have a read of this book. So we need to practice, we need to increment to improve, but how do we do that? I mean, these are just words, right? I want something that I can do. And what I'm going to tell you is that you need to put the effort in 4 different areas. And I'm going to look into these areas in a little bit more detail. So first of all, something that many of you may not believe is that it doesn't really matter how much talent you have, because talent is not important if you want to achieve success. What is important is the amount of your potential that you are able to capitalize. So what you need to do, you need to start cultivating your assets. And be aware that there is always room for improvement. So you will never reach perfection. You always aim for improvement. And basically, the way you should be feeling is you should be tired of feeling tired and neglecting your own abilities, because you are special. And the only thing that you need to do is to start investing on yourself. Now, why are we not investing in ourselves? We know that's what we need to do. That's because of all the distractions that are in our life. And each one of us will probably have a different collection. For some of us, maybe Instagram. For some of us, maybe Netflix, or maybe, all those books that you have next to your desk and you never managed to read. It could be Facebook, it could be YouTube, or simply, you're just too busy because you are in meetings. What all these activities have in common is that there is no end to them. You're never going to be able to watch all the video on YouTube, all the movies in Netflix, or, you're never going to reach the end of Instagram. And all these activities are zero value activities. And the author of Make Time came up with a term that I quite like to describe these activities. So they call them infinity pool, because literally there is no end. This is a constant distraction that is there in your life and doesn't add any value. So what you should be doing is get rid of these distractions, because there is a big difference between being busy and being productive. Your goal is not to be busy. Your goal is to be productive. And sometimes less is more. So you should basically stop managing your time, but start managing your focus. Imagine that every day you wake up and you have a limited amount of focus. And every single action that you take will consume some of that focus. And when it's gone, it's gone. You need to wait for the next day. So what you should be aiming to do is to work on high value activity in a quiet environment without distractions, and to stop this relentless multitasking. The book Make Time suggests a lot of very useful techniques to identify what should be the highlight of your day. There are techniques that you can use to manage your focus so that you are laser focused on what you should be doing. And one of the probably most important steps is, at the end of the day, every single day, you should try to think about your journey. You should try to think about what happened in the last 24 hours. What techniques did you use? What worked? What didn't work? What can you improve? The next step, once we got rid of all the distractions, is to start practicing, achieve mastery. You should invest in endless education, and you should try to practice every day, because the reality is that if your commitment is a part-time commitment, you're only going to get part-time results. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is that we are all busy. We all have a lot of commitments. And it may be that in your particular situation, part-time commitment is the only thing that you can do now. And what I'm telling you is do it. You don't, if you cannot fully commit, just do something, because that would be the start of the change. And it's still better of becoming worse every day, if you remember one of my initial slides. So how do we practice? In order to be in a place where we can practice, we need to take care of 4 different aspects of our life. We need to think about our mindset. We need to think about our emotional situation, our health, and our soul. So if you are interested to know more about the mindset, my suggestion is to read this book, conveniently named Mindset, where this book explains the difference between a growth mindset and a fixed mindset, and it will help you achieving the right mindset. What does it mean? Having the right mindset means being aware that intelligence and talents can be improved through effort and learning. At the same time, having the right mindset is only 25% of the effort. You need to take care of the other 3 aspects of your life. One that people don't think about is your emotional life. What you should achieve or try to do is to get rid of negative feelings, because there is no way you can be amazing and produce great results if everyone around you is negative and they're bringing you down. And one practice that is often used in this area is the gratitude practice. The idea is, at the end of every day, think about 3 things that you're happy for, and do this every evening. And in 21 days, you should be seeing a big difference. The next one is one that probably we are all familiar with. So in order to be productive, you need to take care of your health. This is something that even the Romans were aware of. This is Latin for you can only have a healthy mind in a healthy body. And if you don't believe the Romans, there is a joke. It's probably not funny, but what is the best way to be productive for a long time? How are you going to achieve 10,000 hours of practice if you're not healthy? Well, the best way to be productive for long is not to die. It's a little bit dark, but it does give the idea. And finally, you need to take care of your soul. And this doesn't necessarily mean being religious or believing in God. This means increase the awareness of yourself. There is a very interesting book, 21 Lessons for the 21st Century. This book basically is collecting things that we should carry on the next century. And the last one of the 21 lessons is basically that we should meditate. I did find it quite interesting that this is one of the things that the author thinks is most important. So here we are. We decided to invest in ourselves. We got rid of distractions. We know that we need to take care of 4 different areas of our life in order to be in a position where we can achieve mastery and practice. So what's next? The last thing that we need to think about is our calendar, is how do we spend our day? Now, don't be scared. This is what the author of the 5 AM Club suggests you to adopt as a calendar. You don't need to read it. There is like a crazy load of information. You can actually find this slide on the internet. But what I think is important about this slide is that there are a lot of techniques. And it may be that most of them are not going to work for you. They're not gonna be important to you, or you may not be able to do them because of external factors. But what you should be trying to do is be aware of what these techniques are, experiment on yourself, and try to figure out what works for you. So I'm not gonna go into the details, but because this is my journey and these are the things that I've done, what I'm gonna show you is how my calendar looks like. And not surprisingly, it is a very, very simplified version of what you've seen before. So I decided to wake up early. I mean, for some of you, 6:30 in the morning will not probably be early, but considering I start working at 9, I still count it as early. And what I do when I wake up, make myself a coffee and read Medium, where I can get up to date with some of the things that are happening in the tech world. After that, for 1 hour from 7 to 8, I grab myself a book and I read. I just sit down and read first thing in the morning. This is not, I'm not reading fictional book. I'm reading books that have a meaning for my personal goal. And I do that at 7 in the morning because there is no other way I can make time to do this activity. At 8 a.m., I start training. That can be a run, it can be a HIIT class, or it can just be yoga. That depends on you and what you like to do. Then when I start working, I focus my morning on what is the most important task, the one that requires most of my focus. I do have my lunch break, and then during the lunch break, I tend to go out, have a walk, listen to an audiobook, and then in the afternoon, I will do all the other activities that I have to do in my day. By the time I finish working, I need a clear cut between my working life and my personal life. And I found out that something that quite works for me is to just isolate myself in the kitchen and start cooking. So I will spend like 1 hour cooking, and that is the boundary between work and personal life. After that, I spent time with my family and I watched Netflix. So I did not get rid of all of my distractions. Netflix is still there, but I did reduce quite a lot my activity on social media. Another thing that I found quite useful is to do intermittent fasting. So this 16 hours of fasting and 8-hour eating. And that is something that surprisingly was mentioned in several books that I read. For all different reasons, a lot of people found that useful. So we start our journey in improvement. How is that journey gonna look? I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna be honest, for the first 22 days, it's not gonna look great. You're gonna try things and you're not gonna be, they're not gonna work out for you. That's because these initial 22 days are called a destruction stage, where you need to get rid of the old habit, and also you don't know what the new ones are going to be. So you're just experimenting on yourself. But don't give up, keep trying things. And after 22 days, you will get in the installation stage where you start creating a new habit, a new version of yourself. And then eventually, after you finish the integration stage, where you integrate the new version of yourself with your life, you will, so after these 66 days, you will have an habit that will stick for you, for your entire life. And just remember that the only way to fail is to quit trying. Everything else is a success, because what I'm asking you to do is to try things out, fail, and then try again, and keep doing that, and you will achieve the success that you're looking for. And if you think about this in another way, you just don't know what works for you. So this initial part is literally you trying to collect information about yourself. You're trying to find out what works for you before you can be the best version of yourself. Another thing that I found out really works for me is to make myself accountable. So find someone, a friend, a partner, a colleague, and just tell them what you want to do. Tell them that these are your goals, this is what you want to achieve, and this is and the role of this person is basically to help you. You're committing to someone else. So now if you don't succeed, you're letting another person down, and that really works. So because this is my journey, I'm just gonna tell you what happened in my life. So first of all, when I started this at the beginning of this year, someone started noticing a change in my routine. So my cat realized that when I wake up, I'll just sit on my couch and read. So she is going to be the first person there waiting for me. It wasn't just my cat, but my daughter found out about that as well. So in the weekend, this is like 7 a.m. She's just sitting there with her own book, reading next to me. And it's not just reading, right? Because I changed few things in my life, and at 8 a.m. I'm training, I'm doing yoga, and that's exactly what you see here is my daughter just doing yoga. And this is nothing. I never told her what I was doing. She just looked at what I was doing, and she tried to experiment herself. So this is her personal journey. But it's not just my immediate family that changed their behavior because of my changing. The same happened to my friends. And what you will realize is that you were not the only one in this journey. A lot of people started this journey before you, and many will start after you. And you can all work together to achieve a better version of yourself. Now, this is the end of my presentation, but you cannot really end without giving some takeaway. So this is what I think is important to remember from this presentation. First of all, is that you have to start investing in yourself, and you have to do it today. Not tomorrow, not yesterday, today. You have to start thinking about the infinity pool and do what you can to remove the zero value activities from your life. You need to start this journey where you are learning about yourself, what works and what doesn't work. You have to make a plan because things don't just happen. And finally, you need to walk the path that you set for yourself. That is the end of my presentation. Thank you for listening.
Thanks so much, Tullio. So we did have a few questions submitted for you during the registration. So I'll just kick off with the first one, if that's all right. So how do you prevent yourself slipping back into bad habits when things get really busy and hard to keep on top of? What would you advise?
Yeah, that is a very good question. And that is part of the first 22 days where you're just experimenting and you're trying to get rid of the old habit. There are several things you can do depending on what's the reason why you're slipping back. Personally, for myself, for example, work has this tendency of getting into the way. So I mean, it's half a joke, but what I did say, basically, I explained to people what I was trying to do. So, for example, I know that it's very important for me to do the most important work. I will do that in the morning, but it's like I don't have control over other people's calendars, right? So people will start booking meetings in the morning, and then I end up not having time. So what I told basically the people that work with me is that is my time to do what is most important, and eventually people will start realizing, and they will start booking meetings in the afternoon, maybe where they know that I'm more willing to. I mean, not willing, but where it's easier for me to do those kinds of activities that are still important, but they require less focus. Other things like, for example, because you have to train, right? So you have to take care of your health. So how comes that every morning at 8, you have to train? It's difficult. You need to remember why you're doing that. You need to remember why that is important to you, because no one else is telling you to do that. It's something that you want to do. So you need to find the energy inside yourself. You also need to be gentle to yourself, and if you fail, um, what do? You just try something different. Maybe you decide that you want to run a marathon and you try to go for a long run every day at 8 a.m. and that doesn't work for you. Maybe that's because you shouldn't be running. Maybe yoga is a better thing to do. So just experiment with different kind of activities. And the same apply to everything, every aspect of what you're trying to do.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, with what you said about meetings, that's something that you see quite a lot of people talking about on LinkedIn, sort of in the mornings when you're most productive. That's kind of your prime time to get things done. I mean, did you find that it made quite a big impact in terms of pushing them all back to the afternoon?
Yes, it did make an impact. It's not just about making time, it's also deciding what is that activity. Because if you make time in the morning to do an activity that is not important to you or to your company or to the people around you, you're basically wasting your time. So it's equally important to identify what you should be focusing on that day and make time for that. And also what really worked is sharing that. So everyone in my team knows what I'm doing in the morning, and I have a calendar that is blocked out where I have 2 hours every morning to do my main task. But at the same time, I told them that they can book, if they need time, anything they need, they can still book time on top of that. So it's not like I'm disappearing. And people I mean, my colleagues, they do understand what's going on, and they are I mean, yeah, they do that. And the reality is that they have exactly the same problem, and they may just not be aware, but that would be helping them as well.
Yeah. Okay, great. And then the next question is kind of on a sort of a similar topic. How can you stop yourself buying into toxic productivity that is quite often seen on LinkedIn and not feel guilty about having days off or taking time to yourself to indulge in zero value activities?
Yeah, that is a very interesting question. So you need to put some distance between you and the toxic environment. So I'm not entirely sure what kind of toxic activities you're talking about. Do you have any example?
I think so. Often, I think the question is about, so on LinkedIn, people come across as, being super productive, always busy. If you're not, kind of what you were saying earlier about if you're not busy, there's a difference between being busy and productive. But
Yeah.
how do you, sometimes if you just have like an off day, for example, and you feel like, I don't feel like doing that today, or I just want to take some time to myself and do something that's maybe like watching Netflix. It's a zero value kind of activity. How do you stop yourself from then feeling guilty and thinking, oh, I should have done more, or I didn't do good enough today?
Yeah, again, it's feeling guilty is not great, and it is not helpful either. So if you find yourself that in that particular day that is what you needed, you should probably ask yourself why. I mean, why am I spending time in Netflix? I'm not saying you should feel guilty, because I mean, what's the point of feeling guilty? But just ask yourself, is Netflix something that is helping me? And if you remember my calendar, I do make time. I do watch one episode of a series every evening. And the reason why I do that is because that is my zero value activity that help me relax and get myself in the mood for having a good night of sleep. And you don't have to be productive all the time every single day. You just need to ask yourself a question. Ask yourself, why am I doing this? Is this the best thing I can do for myself? And if the answer is yes, do it. It's yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great. Do we have any more questions? Bit of time if anyone has any that they wanted to put in. Someone's put before about, I'm not sure which book it was, but that it was a great book. I think that might have been about the one of the first two, but give it just a little more time if anyone has any more. Or what have we got here? Someone asks, what Netflix series are you watching at the moment?
Yeah, I actually lie. I'm watching Disney Channel at the moment, and there is this TV series that is a little bit, is half fictional, half reality, and is about basically starting a colony on Mars. I think it's literally called Mars. So I just started it yesterday. I watched the first episode, and I think it's very good. Also, I'm reading the book from Stephen Hopkins about yeah, all these theories about the fact that time is relative, and I also read the biography of Elon Musk, and he has a plan to go to Mars. So I think you all like fit together in my interest.
Oh, we've got another question. Can we get yeah, so someone's asked, can we get a list of the books that you've mentioned? So if that's okay with you, afterwards we could send around a list.
Yeah, thank you, Trupti. Yeah, I think I will. We can definitely share the list. Is also these are books that I read in the last 2 to 3 years, and they are. I mean, the one I share are all very interesting for a variety of reasons. So I would definitely. I mean, you can't really go wrong. So any one of them that you read, it would be bring benefit in your life.
Brilliant. Oh, we've got quite a few coming in now. So someone asks, what are some of your favorite podcasts, and is there any that you would recommend?
Yeah, I'm not really listening to any podcast at the moment. I tried the one from John Rogan, but I don't think it fit my kind of thinking. It was suggested to me, but it doesn't work. What I tend to do, so especially when I go out for a walk or lunch, I tend to listen to audiobook. So no podcast for me, unfortunately. Sorry.
That's okay. So next question is, do you think you'll be more challenged in this when we go back to the new normal? For example, with commuting, after work activities, that type of thing?
That is honestly a great question, and that's something that I've been asking myself as well. So I went to the office yesterday and on Friday, and what I did exactly what I'm suggesting to do. I experimented. So on Friday, I did my journey by train, and I have quite a long commute as well because I don't live in London. So I used that time to read a book. In the past, I was struggling with this because I will wake up tired and I may be napping on the way to work, but I think it worked quite well, and I managed to, I mean, do what I wanted. So I still had my hour of reading, even if I was on the train. On the way back, it was more difficult because usually I don't use that time for reading, so I still have to figure out what to do. Yesterday, I decided to take the motorbike, so I was riding to the office, and yeah, it wasn't great because there is literally 1 hour where I couldn't do anything because I cannot even listen to a podcast. So I will, yeah, that will have an impact, and that's something that I still have to figure out. The good thing is that Rightmove is not going back to the office full time, so it will be 3 days in the office and 2 days working from home. So it may be that I will have to do a variety of schedules, but yeah.
Yeah, it's
That was
quite
a
a
very
nice
good
one.
question.
Next question is, do you have your own personal definition for zero value?
Yeah. So zero value activity are those activities that are not bringing anything to your life. So what a zero value activity is for myself may not be the same for you. One example is Instagram. I found Instagram very toxic I mean, if you think Facebook is toxic, I mean, try Instagram. You will only see like beautiful pictures. You only see people happy. Everyone is like super fit. It's like, how is it even possible? So what I and I was on Instagram every day. So until the end of last year, Instagram, I would spend like maybe 1 hour on Instagram every day. I mean, something ridiculous. So what I started doing, I started unsubscribing to almost every person I was following. I only keep my friends and things related to traveling. Um, every other person, as soon as someone posts like a super fit picture, modeling picture, all those things, I just remove them because those are they're not even zero value, they're negative value because they upset me. I will become jealous. I will be like, oh, I want to have that body, I want to do that, and they're all like fake anyway. And there are people in a different journey. They even some of the people that I used to follow, they train like 3-4 hours a day. That is their job. And if I see their picture, I still compare myself with them, but that is what they do. Like, is like instead of like being in the office and coding for 7 hours, they will train. So we are in different journeys, but unfortunately, because of the way Instagram works, you're kind of like competing with them, and yeah, that is, I would say, like a negative value activity.
Yeah. Just another one here. It's not so much of a question, but it's someone has said they recommend How to Fail with Elizabeth Day as a podcast, as well as the Growth Mindset podcast and the Life Coach School podcast, and Abundantly Clear. So just for anyone that wanted some podcast recommendations, there's a good one there.
Thank you for that.
I guess the only other question I had, when you were saying before about when you were commuting the other day, and you were saying that previously you'd find that you wouldn't have energy in the morning to read on the train. Do you find that now that you have this kind of productive routine and structure in place, that you find you've got more energy? Does that wake up in the morning and get that bit easier as time goes on?
Yeah, absolutely. So something probably I should have mentioned is when I started this change, I was starting working at 9, and I will wake up 20 minutes to 9. So it's not like I was in a great place and I was already waking up early. So and what I discovered is that by waking up earlier, out of the blue, now I have 2 extra hours in my day, and they're not 2 hours at the end of the day where I'm tired and I just want to watch Netflix or chat or whatever. These are like 2 hours where I'm full of energy, and I can study, I can learn something, I can train. So yeah,
Okay.
I'm positive that this energy will stay basically.
I've just seen another question that I think relates to the one you were talking about before. So someone's asked, don't you find that zero value activities really help you with coming up with ideas or solve problems when you've been stuck?
Yeah, those are not zero activities. Then that's why I was saying it depends on what who you are, and that's why you should try. You should see what works for you. For example, what you described there, it will never happen to me while watching Netflix or being on Instagram, but it does happen when I go running. So for me, running has actually the other benefit, that is the time where I can think, or I can come up with new ideas. Another one that is weird, but I know that I'm not the only one with this one, is shower. I don't know what's with the shower, but having a shower is another, it's not a zero value activity because it's a time where you are alone. You can think clearly about things, and often I come out with ideas while I'm having a shower. That is weird to say, but I swear that other people say they feel the same. So
No, I'm sure I've heard that before. I think, someone else agrees with you as well. But I think that's all the questions we've had. So Yeah, thanks Tullio so much for speaking to us today. And obviously there was some really valuable and tangible pieces of advice there. So thank you so much for such a great talk. And thank you to everyone who joined and for all the questions. As ever, this talk's been recorded, so we'll be sharing out the video and a full write-up on our blog. We'll be sure to include that list of books as well and podcasts. So look out for that over the next few days. And then of course, if you have any other questions that we didn't get to answer, or you want to chat with Tullio or myself further on the topic, please feel free to follow both of us on LinkedIn. I hope I'm speaking for Tullio as well when we say that we'd both be happy to chat. And if anyone is watching this and you think you'd like to give presenting a go, please do get in touch with either myself or our marketing manager, Becca Rose, as we're always looking for people to come and talk about their stories and share their knowledge and insights in future Tales and Tech Talks. So thanks again, Tullio, and hope everyone else has a great day.
Thank you very much for having me.
No problem. Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.